Hey gamers, this is the first part in a series where I play through my favorite game, Elden Ring, and show obscure facts, unused content, and other epic data mining secrets. I made some videos before that were about random pointless info, and I want this series to be the exact same kind of content but going through the game in order. And this video is the first part, so it's all about the character creator. There's weird stuff about the face customization coming up later, but first the game makes you pick your character's origin, and I've got a fun fact for all 10 origins in the game. So here we go. Vagabond, I can't think of one. Warrior, the Warrior's 1.0 description says a twin blade wielding warrior. So either that's a weird mistranslation about them having two blades, or originally they were going to start with the twin blade, which would have been kind of cool. The hero was called the Champion in the network test, and their armor is still called the Champion armor, so I guess they just never changed that. And in the network test they were going to have two axes, and the finger seal, which had a different sprite, and the red thorn round shield, which ended up getting given to the samurai. So that's weird. For the bandit's armor situation is really messed up and it really annoys me. So let me tell you why that is. Later in the game in Sage's Cave you find the raptor's black feathers, which is pretty clearly just the bandit garb, but it has a cape on it. And the item description for it mentions the Ravenmount assassins, but the bandit garb description doesn't mention that. So they're like related, but they're not related in the descriptions, which is interesting. Also in that cave you find the skeletal mask, which is part of the same set, and it also mentions the assassins. If you look at the model files and how they're numbered, it really makes it look like one big set with the raptor's black feathers and the skeletal mask, and the bandit's gloves and shoes. And then the bandit garb takes the place that the altered form of the chest armor usually is in, if that makes sense. So I think it was one set originally, but then they decided to split it up between the Ravenmounts and the bandits. I would definitely pick bandit way more often if they just started with the full Ravenmount set, because I think it actually looks cool. But the bandit set on its own, nah, it's lame. It doesn't work for me. But there's more, because obviously the bandit starts with the bandit mask. And if we look at its file name, this also comes from a different set. And this time it's grouped with the leather armor set that Patches wears. If you kill Patches, you only get the armor, the gloves, and the boots. But the bandit mask is numbered as if it was the altered version of the helmet for that set. And the unaltered version of the helmet for that set is the black hood, which is also in Sage's Cave. So you can tell they're basically the same except without the hood. And they seem to have changed the colors on the bandit mask, maybe to make it match the set more. You can see that the colors of the black hood match the cape that's on the leather armor perfectly, so I don't know why they split up Patch's armor as well, except obviously you can't have Patches wearing a hat, because then you can't tell that he's bald. So it's a big mess. Just to summarize, at first there was the Ravenmount set, and the leather set, and then the armor sets had a baby, and the baby was the bandit set. And then they abandoned the baby, and ran away and lived in a cave with the snail guy and the invisible dickhead. And so the bandit set would grow up never knowing who his parents were. And that's just too sad for me, so that's why I hate this set, and it looks crap. I like the astrologer set a bit more. And I think it's funny that in the 1.0 version of the game, the description for the astrologer armor doesn't mention astrology at all, and it only talks about polishing glintstones. So I don't think they were going to be called astrologers originally, because there's no stars mentioned, it's only polishing rocks, and that's it. So that's kind of funny. The Prophet was one of the classes in the network test, except there they had the club and the clawmark seal, and they had the beast claw incantation. And it bothers me that the champion had the pure faith seal, and then the Prophet had the strength seal. Feels like it's the wrong way around, but I never even played the network test, so I'm not sure why I care. The samurai has a hole in the geometry of their armor, which is very strange. I don't know how that could have happened, how that ended up in the game and no one noticed. Like, come on, what is this? Okay, the prisoner is very cool, because before the game came out, there was some promotional screenshots, and they were the usual kind of promotional screenshots, except there was two featuring the prisoner, looking fucking cool. I don't know why they decided to do this. Someone was having fun making these screenshots, but we can see the prisoner going apeshit and killing guys in Rea Lucaria. No other class got something this cool, only the prisoner. People were speculating about it a lot, who this character is, because it does kind of seem like this would be a character you'd meet and maybe have to fight because they're fucking scary. I like how they're using the flail as well. It's a really underrated weapon. At first I thought this was the crime that got them locked up, but they're already wearing the prisoner mask, so I guess this is them escaping from their prison and getting revenge on their guards. Good. Fuck you, Moongram. In the 1.0 version of the game, the Confessor was called the Intelligencer, which is a real word, but it sounds kind of silly, so I'm glad they changed it. When I looked up Intelligencer, Wiktionary mentions the related term Macaroni Intelligencer, which they don't have a definition for, and I couldn't find a definition for this term online anywhere. So I don't know what it means. So I'm sorry if that's something offensive. And for the Wretch, in 1.0, it just said a club is all they have. And then in an update, they added the word nice. I guess to make it sound more appealing. Alright, that's all the facts. I wasn't joking when I said I couldn't think of one for the Vagabond. I really couldn't, but I am going to pick the Vagabond because it's my favourite, I think. I just like being a boring kind of knight character in these games. So I'll get to the actual character creator in a second, but first, we need to think of a good name for our character. And if you've played online, you know that the swear filter for this game is just out of control. It just censors everything. I have a friend who tried to make Homer Simpson in this game, and the first two letters of Homer's name was censored. So that's how insane it is. So to help out all my viewers, I thought I would read through all 1,600 swear words that's included in this list. Actually, I'm not going to do that. But you can find the list online, and I do encourage you to read it because it's really, really funny. I have no earthly idea who made this list, where it came from. I don't think someone at FromSoft sat down and made this list. It might have been handed to them by Bandai Namco or something like that, but whoever, the sick mind that came up with this list, they were definitely a frequent user of Urban Dictionary, that's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to put up on the screen a list of my 50 favorite things that I swear these actually appear in the swear filter. So yeah, don't put any of these in your name because it'll get censored. Macaroni Intelligencer wasn't on the list, but I learned dozens of new terms that I'm doubtless going to use in my everyday life. Okay, now for the keepsake. Usually I pick the pots or the golden seed, because everything else you can get pretty early in the game. For some reason I really want to pick the Lands Between rune, just because it's the only Lands Between rune in the whole game. So if you don't pick it as your keepsake, then you can never have this item. And it's basically the same thing as Golden Rune 8. They both give you 3,000 runes and they have the same picture, but they made it a unique item for whatever reason. And if you compare the descriptions, there's a weird similarity. The Golden Rune 8 says grace that dwells within the inhabitants of the Lands Between. And then the Lands Between rune says grace said to have once dwelled in the eyes of the inhabitants of the Lands Between. So the descriptions are very similar, but the Lands Between rune is written in the past tense, which makes sense because the third paragraph mentions the tarnished who have lost grace, unlike the blessed people born under the Erdtree who are mentioned in Golden Rune 8. The only problem is, on the keepsake menu, it says the gold of grace shining in the eyes of the people of the Lands Between, which is in the present tense again. So I think we should just move on at this point. Let's look at the base templates instead. The base template characters are saved in a file called FaceParam, as well as all the NPCs' faces in the game. And I already made a video showing every single character that's stored in this file. It's basically a huge spreadsheet with the slider details for every single character. And the majority of these faces are unused, so we're free to speculate on what these characters could have been. And they're not saved in any order, but some of these unused faces are very similar to the base templates. So I thought it'd be fun to compare the final versions with the unused variants. But I was wrong, because most of these differences are very minor. So a lot of these unused duplicates just have a different haircut. And the Northerner could have had red hair originally. The Draconians have unused variants that have golden scars. and they were trying out different skin colors for the Newman, it looks like. The most interesting one is the Night Folk, who have loads of recolors. So it looks like they were trying out lots of different colors for the Silver tier people before they settled on Silver. Okay, we're 10 minutes in, and now we're finally getting to the actual character creator. Did you know the hairstyle you pick is saved in a variable called hairPartsID, and the eyebrows are saved as eyebrow_parts_ID, and so on. All these variables are 8-bit integers or something like that, so they can't go above 255, which isn't a problem because there's only 17 eyebrows to pick from. If you use hacks to make the eyebrow_parts_ID go above 17 anyway, then nothing happens. There's no hidden unused eyebrows in this game, I checked. The reason I bring all that up is because there are some variables which do some funny and interesting stuff if you hack them to go outside the normal limits. The first one is FaceParam, which needs a bit of explaining. I can't tell if this was really smart or really dumb, but they decided to use this one variable, which can't go above 255, to save the musculature, facial bone structure, and age of the character. The ones digit is the age, so 0 for young, 1 for mature, and 2 for aged. The tens digit is the facial bone structure, 0 to 5, and the hundreds digit is the musculature, so 0 for normal, 1 for muscular, and then 2 is a special value that they gave just to Egon, because he's the hardest cunt in the game. No, just kidding. 2 is just the muscular build, but it has the left leg missing. And that's because Egon is actually an amputee, although it's not easy to notice this in-game. When you see him in the overworld, he's wearing an unobtainable version of his armor that pretty much covers his legs. Then when you summon him in Bale's fight, it's a different version of Egon who uses the regular muscular build with both legs. So I guess the summoned version is like him in his prime or something. Maybe they were going to have him like on the ground all the time like Laterna, the Spirit Ash, but they wanted him to be able to move around, so he got given both his legs back just for that fight. Who knows? Besides having only one leg, you can do some funny stuff by editing this value to be something outside of the normal limits. The Egon build only works if your character is type A and their age is the oldest option because it was made just for Egon, who's an old guy. If their age or body type is something else, then your character is just a floating face and has no body at all, which is pretty fun. So that's editing the first digit. So if we set the second digit to a number above 5, then you get the opposite, which is a character with a body but no face. So that's pretty spooky. Unfortunately, we can't combine these two things because then the number would go over 255, which it doesn't let you do. But if we set the last digit to anything over 2, it does get confused and gives you a totally invisible character except for their eyes and their hair. So using all these cheats, you can make some pretty funny looking characters. But they always have the floating underpants. I don't know how to get rid of that. It was really easy to get these glitch characters, like you only have to change one number. And I'm pretty sure if I went online with a character like this, other players would be able to see it the same way. So I'm surprised I've never heard of anyone encountering a hacker with a glitched character like this before. And that might be because they just immediately ban you if you go online with a glitched character, so I recommend you don't do it. I wish I could say that those are the only weird things you can do by editing the face parts value, but there is one more thing. Something that really caught me off guard because of how weird it is, and something that I have absolutely no explanation for. So if the first digit is a 1 and the last digit is a 5, you end up with this thing. So I don't fucking know what this is. It's like a really buff guy on the right side, and then on the left side it's just a skeleton, and he has no material, so he just looks like a glue monster. And he has a grey tuft of hair and a cape for some reason, except they don't have physics. So for some reason the specific values 105, 115, 125, etc. give you this thing. It's like a secret combination that gives you this model. Like there's no logical reason why this would happen when you do that, but there it is. you can see your character's real hair and eyes sort of jutting out of his fucking head, which is really gross. So maybe this is like a test model that they were using in development, but he doesn't even wear clothes properly, so I can't imagine what this would be testing. So if someone recognizes this, or if someone better at data mining than me can figure out what it's meant to be, then please let me know. Or even better, keep it to yourself, because I never want to see or think about this thing ever again. And like with FaceParts ID, you can also change EyeParts ID to do some fun stuff with your character's eyes. And usually it only changes when you reach a certain point in a quest line. By default it's 0, which is the normal eyes. But if you change it to 10, you get the Frenzied Flame eyes, which are normally given to your character if they get grabbed by the 3 fingers. 11 is the Draconic eyes you normally get from learning 4 Dragon Communion incantations. The third eye alteration you can get in-game is the Bloody Red eyes from doing Vare's quest, but they actually use the default EyeParts value of 0 and just force the colours to be red. By the way, the game prioritizes the eye alterations in the order of Frenzied, then Bloody, then Draconic, so the Frenzied eyes will always override the other 2. When you use Miquella's Needle, it will also undo the Frenzied eyes effect. But because the Draconic eyes are the absolute lowest priority, if you let Vare do the weird thing to your finger, then you can never get the cool dragon eyes, which is a shame. And I found one other value that works. EyeParts 12 have no pupil, and the iris has a metallic texture. As far as I know, this is unused, but it looks a lot like the texture of the silver tier enemies. The Mimic tier NPCs you fight don't have these eyes, and neither does the Mimic tier Spirit Ash. So if these eyes really are unused, maybe they were meant for the cut NPC Asimi, who was a fully voiced NPC that had a whole quest line which was cut from the game. And I'll link a video about that character if you don't know about it. If you set the EyeParts value to any other number, you just have no eyes at all, and I don't like that. But you can combine this with the floating eyes character we made earlier to just make a completely invisible person. The cool thing with forcing your character to have a different eye model is that it doesn't lock any of the color sliders. So here my character has unlocked the Draconic eyes legitimately, so it doesn't let me change the colors. It only lets me do that if I turn off the alteration and just use the normal eyes. But if I manually change to the Draconic eyes by cheating, then all the sliders are unlocked. And this lets you change the color of the dragon eyes, which is normally impossible. So that's a fun bit of unused customization. Sadly, you can't change the color of the Frenzied eyes at all. But the silver tier eyes do let you change the color of the eye whites. Another hidden feature in the character creator are the 26 sliders that make the faces asymmetrical. Here's all of them going from 0 to 255, so you can see what each one does. I haven't played it yet, but I think they made these for Bloodborne so they could make the characters in that game look more English. This is completely unused in Elden Ring. Every character just has the default values for all of these. And it's funny how detailed the customization is, because you would have thought they could have done this with like 4 sliders. But they made 26 of them for some reason, and each one makes a different part of the face slightly more wonky. And here's all the sliders going from 0 to 255. I'm showing you this in-game by just editing the FaceParam table, which is pretty easy to do with smithbox as long as you like spreadsheets. And I've done some other stuff by messing around with this. I don't remember what the point of this was, but I made a spreadsheet that lets you put in any 2 characters, and then it kind of transitions between their 2 faces. Like it does maths to make a gradient between the 2 characters. So yeah, this is completely pointless, but I just made it because I could. And I'll put it in the description if you really want to use this for yourself. Then I had a much better idea. I should make a randomizer, because every game should have a randomize button on the character creator, really. I mean, how hard can it be? You just put a random number for every slider. So I made a spreadsheet that does that, and the resulting characters look like this. So it's not exactly what I had in mind. I know some people make their characters look like this on purpose, and good for them, but it's not what I wanted. I wanted to make like human characters. So to make the colors a bit more normal, instead of randomly generating a skin color, I made it pick a skin color that's already being used by one of the 400 or so characters already in the FaceParam table. And then I did the same thing with the hair color. I made it pick a random character and use their hair color. And then I disabled tattoos and makeup, and I limited a couple of other things, like I made the eyes symmetrical. And the result was this, which I'm pretty happy with. They look really fucking stupid, but it's getting there. They do have some pretty extreme facial features though, so the next thing I did, I decided to limit the sliders a bit. So instead of them going from 0 to 255, I made it pick a random number from closer to the middle. Now they're still not perfect, but it's sort of what I was trying to do. They're a bit crazy looking, but if you squint, they do look like people, kind of. But I can see why they didn't put a randomizer in the game, because this is kind of tricky. The last thing I tried was, for each individual face slider, I would randomly pick a character from FaceParam, and then use their value for that one slider. So each slider comes from a different random character, so they still look pretty dumb, but in kind of a different way. And I'm reasonably happy with this. I don't know if I'd use any of these as my character like in the actual game, but it was a bit of fun making this. And I'll link this spreadsheet in the description if you want to play around with it yourself. The only problem is you need a smithbox set up, and you need to manually copy the numbers from the spreadsheet into smithbox. And then you can just hit update, and then you don't even need to relaunch the game, which is nice. So there's a bit of setup involved, but if you really want to have your own random characters, then now you can. And that's pretty much everything I have to say about the Elden Ring character creator for now. So it's the end of the actual video, but thank you very much for watching all the way to the end, and I promise my next video won't take me a million years to make. So I hope you'll join me then, and the rest of this video is just going to be a weird channel update and other bullshit. Like I said, I want to do a series where I go through the game in order, and do a video about each area, so the next video is going to be about the Chapel of Anticipation. And I'm really looking forward to making that video because there's some cool, obscure stuff to talk about, like the old design that you can see on the old map, and the mystery of the grafted scion, and the weirdly giant statue. So that's going to be really fun. It won't be a deep lore dive on the place because I'm not entirely sure what the lore is. And I like to leave the lore to other people who know how to read and stuff like that. And I just realized I never actually made my character, so we need to do that real quick. I was almost going to just use the floating eyeballs thing, but I want to go online with this character, so I can't really do that. So I asked my lovely subscribers in a poll on my channel, and I didn't say what the character was for, but these were the 4 options. So the corpse guy, who I used in my first 2 videos, and he just has the sliders that the dead body that D stands over in Limgrave uses. So that's what he looks like. And I used him in my other 2 videos, but I'm not really that attached to him. And then next up we have Selen, who's very beautiful, even though she wears her giant stone head the whole time, so you never see her. But that's what she looks like under the head. Then we have Mike from Breaking Bad, and it just cracks me up seeing him represented so well in Elden Ring. He was made by Sane Root on YouTube, who does lots of good PvP videos. And then finally we have the monkey, because I just like monkeys. So I thought Selen was going to win easily, but it looks like my horrible subscribers had other plans for me. Turned into a really close race between Mike and the monkey, which is not what I expected at all. I thought I would have to break the tie with a hideous Mike-monkey hybrid using my patented technology. But in the end, by just a few %, the winner of this poll was the monkey. So it was kind of the joke option, but I guess I'm going to be this fucking thing for the whole series. Sorry if you hate him, I know he's kind of hideous, but I don't know, he's kind of funny as well. And I'm going to be wearing a helmet most of the time anyway. So yeah, you better subscribe if you want to see what the horrid monkey will get up to next. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you have an epic day.